name is Connor Hamilton. It's a Tuesday. It's Thursday, not a Tuesday. It's Thursday, the 2nd of November. This is the Seasiders podcast. I completely messed up that intro. We have a feast of content for you today in a special double header where we'll not only review the action from yesterday's game against Stoke, but also preview the upcoming game against QPR. To help us do that, I'm excited to be joined by Andy, who is a huge QPR fan. Hi, Andy.
Hello.
We also have our usual esteemed panelists. We have accredited journalist and international football writer, Sean McKinley. Hello, Sean.
That's a really brave intro there. Thank you very much.
Well, I know you cover some of the leagues in Argentina, so I figured I'd big you up.
I should have said Argentinian football correspondent is more appropriate.
Is this why I start going like that? I'm not worthy.
And then we also have the one and only Joe Afton, an icon of Blackpool Twitter and an all-round excellent bloke. Hi, Joe.
Hello. Checks in the post. Thank you.
So before we get into reviewing the game against Stoke, let's begin by getting a little perspective on all things QPR. Andy has kindly joined us to help guide us through the R's and what we can expect on Saturday. So first of all, welcome, Andy, and tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
I'm 55. I've started, not started. I've been watching Queen's Park Rangers since the 70s, really. It all came about because the school kit, the PE kit from Fleetwood Larkham School, was the blue and white hoops, which QPR were famous for. And in the 70s, they were one of the very best teams around at the time. And I just liked it. My mum knitted me a long scarf, a bit like the old Doctor Who Tom Baker scarf. It went down to the floor from my neck. Even though everybody wore scarves, silk scarves around the wrist in them days, I wore it with pride and with Bobble Hart. Went to a few local games, and I've watched them ever since. So that's my background. I got the bug very early on from watching people like Jerry Francis and Stan Bowles, Dave Thomas, or Frank McClintock, those sort of players. And I've carried on watching them ever since. And fortunately, my daughters also got the bug before they were even born. Quite ironic that they started supporting QPR. So we're a family, dad and two daughters, season ticket holders, and we try to get to as many games as possible, the season ticket holders, and we go to practically all the away games as well. So we're always short of money and always a bit cheesed off because we're not the best team to watch, but we love it nonetheless. And like I say, it's quite ironic because I used to work at Blackpool Football Club, and that's how I met my partner, Christine. So we've got a bit of a rivalry going on this weekend because all her family are Blackpool, and me and my daughters and the dog are all QPR. So that's my background. And I shall be there on Saturday, probably with a curly wig and a moustache on, in order I don't get jumped by the many people who know me. So,
So what I'm hearing is there's no better person to talk about the R's giving you home and away fans. There's quite a bit of competition in the family household because of this game. And I'm sure many, many of our watchers and listeners would love to hear more about your role in Blackpool, at the club, and any inside scoop you can give us.
I think I worked there for about 6 years. I think it was. I'm not quite sure, but I worked under the last few months of Mr. Oyston being in charge. Then I worked under Vicky Oyston for a very short period, and then I worked under Carl. So the managers I worked under, it was Allardyce at first, Sam Allardyce. And then after that, it was Megson, I think, with Mickey Phelan, Nigel Worthington, and finally Steve McMahon. So all different characters, and enjoyed my time there, even though it was frustrating. But it gave me a great insight into how football club was run, and when I look back, it was quite memorable, but as well as being frustrating for lots of reasons. But that's how I ended up meeting Christine, funnily enough, because she was one of my sponsors from the Hilton Hotel. So one of our first dates was taking around the newly built stadium with a hard hat on and rigger boots, and showing her where certain things were going to be inside the ground and underneath when it was all being put together and whatever. So we have memories of that, and that's how we came to be together, really. So I've not got many scoops to tell you, but no, I think those sort of things should be kept quiet anyway, because lots of things go on at workplaces which not to be repeated. But fun times. I met many players, and I've stayed friends with ones that have gone to QPR, such as Clark Carlisle and Danny Chitu. I see Trevor Sinclair from time to time on the train. So it's been nice in that respect. But like I say, I've moved on now. That's quite a few years ago. So I drive a taxi now. So a bit different.
Fair enough. Christine helpfully clarifying in the comments there that your dog is a seasider.
Well, this is where the arguments are going to start. But no doubt she's got a shirt around his neck as we speak. But there you go.
So, what did you expect from QPR coming to the season, Andy? And how do you feel about the performances so far?
We've been excellent. I've been delighted so far. Up until the last 4 weeks, we were playing really well. It was exciting. I think we're the only club in the all four leagues who have scored in every game, if I'm not mistaken. But we are conceding a lot. But the football we were playing and the chances we were creating were superb. We finished the last season very well. We started it poorly, but we got 4 loan players in after Christmas, and they turned it all around. Unfortunately, we were able to sign all 4 of them this coming season, so we started really well. So I've been delighted, really. It was kind of half expected, but not the sort of level we were putting, the performances we were putting together. I didn't expect that. But since we've come back off the international break, we've gone off key, and it's gradually got worse, really. We won last night 1-0 at Cardiff, but it was dire, really, if I'm being honest. I always tell it as I see it, and it was a 0-0 written all over it, really. But we sneaked a 1-0 win, and we've got back into the playoffs, so I'm delighted. But what you'll get on Saturday, I don't really know. We're struggling a little bit with injuries. We lost 2 players in the Notts Forest game last Friday. They're out long term. We haven't got a left back at the moment. But our normal left back, Lee Wallace, is out. He's been out nearly all year. We got a loan in from Norwich called McCallum. He got injured at Forest, as did the centre half, De Vries. So we're going to have a makeshift back 4 or back 5. It'll probably be a back 5, and I think we could struggle down the flanks because we're playing a right winger as our wing back at right back, which is Albert Adomo, which is he's great going forward, but defensively he gets caught out. So it could be high scoring, to be quite honest with you. But if you'd asked me 4 or 5 weeks ago, I would have been really optimistic, and I'd be quite happy to shake people's hands and take the bets on they keep offering me. But I've stayed well clear of it for the last 2 weeks. With Blackpool's form going from strength to strength, from QPR's dipping, I'm not secure anymore now. So,
Andy, what's your opinion on Warburton as a manager at QPR and the overall feeling of QPR supporters? Is he well liked? Is his style of football something that the fans can get behind?
Yeah, everyone likes him. He's an intelligent man. He's had success at most of his clubs he's been to, Rangers, Forest, Brentford, and he seems to be well respected in the game. Players who come and sign speak highly of him. So yeah, we're happy. We've not got massive expectations. I mean, we don't spend the money what we did in the Premiership anymore. We've learnt our lessons when we had Redknapp and Mark Hughes as our manager, and we just give them an open checkbook, and they've ruined the club. So we've gone back to the old traditional QPR ways of bringing players through, giving them good contracts, incentives, and selling them and moving them on. And we realise we are, like most clubs are, a selling club, and we accept that. But Warburton is regarded highly by the fans, and the fans are pleased with him in general. You'll always get the keyboard warriors when we lose it, and they'll be straight onto the social media slagging him off. Why has he done this? Why has he done that? But a lot of the times he's changed it around. We start particularly slow. But the substitutions he's made most of the season have worked well, and they've turned the games around. So, in general, we're very pleased. We're grateful to have him, really, yeah.
You mentioned Albert Adomo, who's a player that I rate very highly. Who else do Blackpool fans have to keep their eye out for on the Saturday afternoon? Well, evening.
It's hard to know which sort of team he's going to put out because he changes it every game by about 3 or 4 players normally, keeping them fresh because we've got some younger players, but we've also got some in the last, the last couple of years of the career. I mean, we've got Charlie Austin, but he hardly ever starts a game. So he's not getting a chance to get fit. So, I mean, you've got to watch him for his finishing. And like you mentioned Albert. Albert's 36. And I think the only reason we signed him is because he's a QPR fan. And he kind of forced to move on by doing Twitter videos and stuff like that with his kit on and stuff. But I think that the player, if he plays, is our captain, Stefan Johansson. He's when he's on form, even though I think he's 34, 35, I was astounded Fulham let him go. He's the captain of Norway, I think it is. And he's outstanding. His eye for a pass is really good. Although he had a stinker last night, but in general, he's all left foot. But he's a very, very clever player. So he's the one I'd say to Blackpool fans to keep an eye on. Other than that, we've got a really good centre half called Rob Dickey, but I don't think he's going to be long. We got him from Oxford, and he's putting in some great performances. And he plays it out from the back. He'll come right down the middle, a la Rio Ferdinand, and he gets past players and he gets the move going. We roll it out from the keeper, and he takes it on, and you'll see him bringing it out to the halfway line many times.
Completely. We had a lot of comments in the chat asking around Rob Dickey and what to expect him. So I'm so glad you touched on him. I think at some point he was the Championship's top scorer along with Aidan Flint, which for a centre back or two centre backs is pretty impressive. One thing I wanted to ask around is your recent kind of away form. I think you've lost 4 of the last 5 away games, if my maths is correct. The one exception being Cardiff last night, who obviously are a side really struggling at the moment. Do you have any concerns about the away form going into this match, Andy, and what it might need for your trips to the seaside?
It's not. I mean, the home form hasn't been great since in the last 3 weeks either. But we have conceded 5 goals in the 90+ minutes in the extra time, and that's disappointing. Even at Peterborough, we conceded in the 92nd minute. We weren't playing badly, just weren't playing well. But you've got no time to come back. We have been a little bit unlucky. We've had enforced substitutions through injuries, and we've not been able to really change the course of the game. So I'm not unduly worried about away form as such. I've been to all those away games, as you mentioned, and other than the Peterborough game and last night at Cardiff, we haven't played badly. So no, we're creating chances. We've always scored. It's at the other end. We just need to be a little bit more streetwise. Take the ball into the corner a little bit, see it out, do what many clubs do, and start falling over and pretend you've got cramp and stuff like that. We've been quite honest and a bit naive, if I'm being honest. So not unduly worried, but the home form has been a bit patchy in the last couple of weeks also, not just the away form.
Excellent. So what's your favourite memory supporting QPR? If you could only keep one memory from your time supporting QPR, which would it be and why?
Oh, blimey. Oh. Not against Blackpool, just in general.
Just in general. We'll go on to past games against Blackpool in a couple of minutes. This is just in general.
Oh, yeah. I think beating Man United 4-1 on New Year's Day in 80, when Leeds ended up winning the league. That was good. That was memorable. I remember going out, when you don't expect a lot on New Year's Day when you're a little bit hungover, but I didn't expect to come home 3 days later after celebrating in Manchester for 3 nights. So probably the 4-1 win at Old Trafford.
what I would give to see Blackpool win 4-1 at Old Trafford.
It won't happen again in half-time.
At the moment, Ronaldo would probably just bail them out at the last minute, but oh well.
Yeah.
So we'll go into our match predictions now. And we'll start with you, Andy, as our guest. Kind of, what's your match prediction on what do you reckon the score is going to be?
I'll go for 2-2.
Okay. Why is that? You said you were expecting lots of goals because of the way you've been attacking.
Yeah, well, we have been scoring, and it's not been a problem finding the back of the net, and we equally concede. Blackpool are playing at home; they've got a noisy crowd. Everybody's talking about it, and the fact you got beat last night, I don't think that does us any favours. I think you'll have success down the flanks against us. You'll certainly get in and behind. So, yeah, 2-2. I think there'll be goals, but I can't really say one way or the other if I've got any strong feelings. I change my opinion when I see the side, because he changes it every week, and I don't actually even put a bet on until I see the side it is, because you're second guessing all the time. We've got 3 strikers. We've got Andre Gray, who we've got on loan from Watford, and he's hardly played. We play Lyndon Dykes up front all the time, but he got injured. But then again, he played last night. He was walking around with a cast boot on 48 hours before that. So I don't know. We could have 2 up front. We could have 1 up front, and it could be any one of the 3. Nobody ever knows. So it'll probably be a 0-0 now, won't it? And it'll be a stalemate. But I say 2-2.
I like a man who predicts goals. It's much more interesting than a 0-0 prediction. Sean, you've been quiet so far. Let us know what you think is going to happen on Saturday.
Yeah, I've been protecting everyone's ears from the fireworks that have been blasting off around the neighbourhood. So, I think, to be honest, I kind of worried that obviously Keogh's going to be out of this one by the looks of it, and that's vital for me. Obviously, you saw Husband's frailties at centre-half in the second half against Stoke. So I think if that's the case, I think I'll probably go with a draw as well. Probably 1 each. I think I'll be quite happy with that, if I'm honest, if we do have a couple of players out at the same time as well. So, yeah, I'm going to go for 1 each.
So is Keogh out then?
It looks that way because, he went off quite early on. It looked like perhaps his calf or his hamstring, and they always tend to be a couple of weeks, don't they? And especially at his age as well, it's not going to be a quick recovery. So
I was looking at him slipping over and passing the ball to our forward so we could put it in the back again.
Well, he's actually, he's essentially the second coming of Maldini at this point. So we've kind of turned him into this messiah. So he kind of, people still come with the reputation that we had of Keogh at the start, and he's very quickly sort of made us look like idiots, to be honest. So he's a big loss if we don't have him in now.
He's won a lot of hearts. He's probably second only to Gary Medine for cult status among Seasiders fans.
So good looking as well.
Well, I reckon that's why he injured his groin. He's been a little bit too active in his evenings.
Yeah,
well. And last but not least, well, actually, no, I guess I would be last, but definitely not least. We'll go second to last. Joe, what's your prediction for the Saturday?
I think there'll be a reaction to the second half performance against Stoke. Obviously, we'll get onto that a little bit later on. Didn't we do too badly against Stoke, to be honest. Could have gone either way, but we're a team that tends to bounce back after a negative result. But then again, as Sean says, if Keogh is out, and I believe Critchley said it was a calf issue, so doubt that's going to clear up over 2 or 3 days. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I think we'll bounce back. I think we'll put in a good performance. The one game that I have seen from QPR this season, I was very impressed with them going forward. That was against Forest on Sky the other week. They looked very good going forward, but they did look vulnerable at the back. So, yeah, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Fair enough. This is 2 for all draws so far. I'm going to be like my friend Steve in the comments and predict a Blackpool win, just to inject a little bit more hope into proceedings. Probably not realism, but definitely hope. I'm sure, whoever steps up into the centre back position will help us keep a clean sheet. We had so many rotations in that position last season and still managed to maintain the best defensive record. And like I say, I think if there is space to attack on the flanks, that really plays into our strengths. You could have Bowler, Dale, Keshi, any one of them rampaging. Oh. And then Josh says, if KO's out, we've lost. Josh has been the most negative so far.
That's the spirit, Josh.
Right, Josh. Can Josh?
All right. And now we'll move on to the next section when we normally have a esteemed guest as yourself on, Andy, which is they played for both. Or we try and talk about our favourite players who played for both Blackpool and QPR. And because I only know one or two, I'm going to be very, very blatantly abuse my host powers and jump in immediately with Bright Osei Samuel. That wonderfully flashy winger with ultimately no end product for any of the time he played for Blackpool.
Yeah, we've pinned him now. He's gone to pasture new.
I think he's playing in Turkey.
He is. He's playing alongside Mesut Ozil, isn't he? So
yeah, he had pace and he put weight on and he got bulkier for us, but he couldn't finish to save his life, and that was it. He didn't like to pass either. So, the fans didn't really take to him, really, if I'm being honest. There's been a lot better players we've bought off Blackpool, if I'm being honest. You want me to name a few? Shall I name a few?
Yeah, go on. That's what.
Right. Well, my favourite one that came from Blackpool many years ago, before your time, was David Bardsley, a right back, who played for England. He was a super player. And obviously we had Trevor Sinclair. I mentioned before Clark Carlisle, Danny Shitu, but we also had Matt Phillips, who I think you got from Wickham.
Yeah.
So he was another winger, different type of player to Sam Young. And there's been other players. We had Ian Everett playing for us. We had Alex Baptiste. And we also got Casper Gorks, but I think he came from Reading, actually, not from Blackpool. I think he went to spell in Reading after Blackpool, didn't he?
It's a level of knowledge that is beyond me. So now it's my turn to bow down and be we are not worthy. John Scott in the comments specifically picked up on Trevor Sinclair and is really interested in your opinion on how Trevor Sinclair did at QPR.
Oh, he was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He played in a very good side, though, with Les Ferdinand, who at the time was an international and was scoring goals for fun and got a fantastic move for both ourselves and for Newcastle. But Trevor played on the right wing, and we called him Tricky Trevor. And he was one of those few players who put you on the edge of your seat when he got the ball, because something often magical happened. He could also head the ball as well from a right winger, so he also came inside a lot, and he scored the most memorable goal I've ever seen. And in lots of people's opinions, not just QPR fans, has scored the best goal we've ever seen, which was an overhead kick, which was against Barnsley in the FA Cup on the outside of the area. In fact, it was that good. The Barnsley fans all applauded it behind the goal. It was, I don't know if you've seen it, but if you look at it on YouTube, it was just fantastic technique and talent to catch the ball just at the split second to put it in the top corner. Fantastic play.
Yeah, I think I've seen the goal on YouTube. But I've also seen the pictures of the Barnsley fans applauding. Back when football fans had respect and decency, and everyone loved each other, and there was none of that thuggery you'll find outside today.
Sounds awful.
Oh. We've had another one in comments by Steve Hutchin, Shitty, which I'm only bringing up because it sounds rude.
Josh Bowler, of course, as well.
Josh Bowler, yeah. We started his career. I was only a young lad. I think it was about 17 when we sold him to Everton for about £1 million. We were skint at the time. So we would take anything. And we felt like at the time it was going to be worth a lot more money, but we needed the money desperately. So I think Everton had him about a year or two bedding him in, and then he got a bad hip injury. So he was loaned out to Hull. I think he spent, was it last season or the season before at Hull? Yeah. And then obviously Blackpool have bought him. They tend to play him on the right-hand side, don't you? But even though he's on foot, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I'm not surprised he went for so much money when he was younger, because just from his sheer sort of technical ability in terms of and physical ability to just drive past players, that's an exciting prospect for a 17-year-old. And invariably, a lot of them will go on to half decent careers, but you know when they can't fine tune the final product in the final third, then they end up inevitably sort of drifting to our level, I guess. And that's kind of what's happened with him. But I'm really not surprised that at 17 he was sort of so highly rated in academy spheres.
Yeah, he was really well thought of. I mean, unfortunately, we had one or two players just before that as well who were all coming through at the same time, and we had to let them all go cheap because we were just short of money. I mean, Ryan Sterling, shall I say, who went to Liverpool and now he's at Man City in England's forward. He started his career at QPR, and we had to let him go for peanuts as well because we were in that situation. We had a guy called Parrott who went to Tottenham for the same reason. We're bringing them through from a very young age and then letting them go before they've even made it into the first team squad, which is, criminal really when you think about it. But again, it shouldn't be happening now. Now we've cut our cloth accordingly. Hopefully those days are over. But it'd be interesting to see how Bowler does. I've been keeping a watchful eye on him, and like I say, my mates who watch Blackpool and people who get him attacks, he keep telling me everybody seems to say what a fantastic talent he is. So I think he's going to make it exciting for Blackpool this year, isn't
he? He is. I think he's been one of our standouts, and he's ours now. So back off slightly.
No, he's no long. Don't worry about that. We wouldn't have been that astute.
And then it's a technical violation of the rules of they played for both because he didn't actually play for both. But I will allow it. Josh and Steve in the comments have raised the fact that obviously Ian Holloway was a player for QPR a long time ago. Did his playing career make any impression?
Yeah, he was. He played in that very good side I mentioned before with Les Ferdinand, with Trevor Sinclair and Kevin Gallen, etc. He middle midfield, a guy who got booked quite a lot, got his foot in, and he kept it simple, short passes, etc. But every club needs one of those. He basically goes, you feed it to Andy Sinton, and Sinton took the ball forward. But a great club man. He does love the club, like he loves Blackpool. He's had 2 stints as manager, it was a bit of an outrage when we put him on gardening leave, but that's when the club was a mess, when they thought they were bigger than what they were, and treated him quite appallingly. At one time, when he was our manager, we put him on gardening leave. We actually were paying 3 different managers. We'd sat one, got Holloway on a 3-year contract, put him on gardening leave after a year. So in actual effect, he was sacked, and I had a 3rd manager. So we brought Steve McLaren in because he ticked all the boxes because he'd been manager of England, and he was a disaster. So we've made that. Sorry, go on.
It's like that great stat that's going around at the moment, which is Tottenham have given 2023 contracts to Mauricio Pochettino, Jose Mourinho, Nuno Espirito Santos, and Antonio Conte. They've got 4 managers under a 2023 contract.
Yeah, madness, isn't it?
Oh. And so, where we're taking up, you've gifted us your time, Andy. We've got one final section we'd like to run through with you, which is head to head, when we talk about the records of each side against each other. And unfortunately, it's looking like it's quite in QPR's favour. Of the 28 games the 2 sides have played against each other, Blackpool have only won 4, we've drawn 10, and QPR have won the other 14. So you've won 50% of the time.
Yeah, I'm Christine about that quite often, really. So, yeah.
Another stat you can use into household warfare. I'll just try and share my screen now to bring up the recent results. If that goes badly, we'll sack it off. Can people see that? Oh, there we go.
Yes, you're a genius, Connor.
I am a technical wizard.
Don't scroll down too far. I don't have to be reminded of that 5-0 opening day defeat again.
Oh yeah,
It's already there.
I enjoyed. Didn't even go to that game. I was actually on holiday in Spain. That's the famous day. It was in 2003 when you wore black.
9th of August 2003.
Yeah.
Blackpool wore black and it was 90 degrees of heat. And they said their energy was sapped, etc., etc. I think Richie Wellens also got sent off in that with about 2 minutes to go to put the tin hat on it. But we were we were in Spain at the time. So
it was probably warmer at Loftus Road. My abiding memory of that game was going down on the coach where the aircon had broke as well. So a nice 4.5, 5 hour journey to London. There, 4.5, 5 hour back. Absolutely roasting hot, and we got to watch our team get spanked 5-0 as well. So yeah, great opening day of the season. Fantastic.
Wellens got sent off, didn't he? Was it Wellens or was it somebody else?
I think it was probably Wellens. He had previous, so yeah. I think Everett got a goal right at the end for QPR as well.
There was 5 different scorers. I wasn't at the game. Like I say, it was our summer holiday, but yeah, disappointing. I missed that one. Man, the most recent game, Blackpool won, didn't they, a couple of years ago when you were boycotting the games, but in the League Cup game, 2-0.
Yeah, 2-0 win in the League Cup. A load of people in my office were QPR fans, so I worked in London at the time. I came in and then got sent home at lunchtime because I was winding people up too much.
Yeah, got low tick that night because I actually went in the ground. I didn't know if it was going on or not because I was being disloyal, but I went in with the kids. But I remember the brand scaffolding where we were waving flags and shouting abuse down to me from their executive box, and it wasn't a memorable night. Let's just say that.
I think I remember that 1st of December 2007 game. If I'm 99% sure, I think it was a last-minute Ben Burgess winner. And the reason I remember it so well is because Lee Camp, from about the 70th minute onwards, took about 50 seconds for each goal kick he took. He was proper time wasting. And I just remember wheeling to the front and giving him a load of stick at the end. That's what you get for time wasting, Camp.
Trust you to remember like a time wasting incident from like 10, 12 years ago.
Lee Camp, mate, my bitterest enemy.
Your blood nemesis.
Yeah, it followed over to when he went to Forest as well. Bloody Lee Camp. Good keeper, mind.
It was Ben Burgess, wasn't it? It was about the 90th minute, wasn't it?
Something like last minute. It was virtually last kick of the game.
Yeah.
I think that is my only good memory of ever playing QPR.
I remember, I'm not sure what year it was, when we won 2-0. And it was horrible weather. Austin and Matt Phillips both scored, but I remember being in that temporary East Stand, which was moving around with the wind blowing against it. It was gusting and it was horrible. But I thought to myself, how's this East Stand got the safety certificates here? Because it was moving. All the concourse was wet and like it was almost like slush walking around. Yeah.
Well, these days are fortunately behind us now.
I don't know, mate. That bloody East Stand last night was bitterly cold, and it was just a terrible experience to be anywhere near it. Fingerless glove attire already, and it's not even like mid-November.
You need to come sit in the West with me and the kind of,
my blanket and my
and gloves brigade. Yeah, exactly.
I did get a sausage roll at halftime, complimentary of Blackpool Football Club. So
wow.
If there's any consolation in life, it's those sausage rolls because they are phenomenal.
All right. Well, we'll try and we'll bear that in mind for the future. If anyone does get a chance to get press box sausage rolls, Sean heartily endorses them. Other sausage rolls are available. Andy, Thank you so much for your time today. We're going to move on now onto kind of some slightly more Blackpool specific chat, recapping the game against Stoke and also thinking about what it should mean for our team on Saturday. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you, and I'll say my goodbyes.
Take care.
Cheers for that.
Cheers,
Thank
mate.
you.
Cheers, take
Cheers.
care.
All right, and then I'll take my screen off. Oh, I've done that like magic as well.
Phenomenal.
And also magic, John has arrived just in time to join us.
It's a bit like an episode of Mr. Ben, this, but that, for only those of certain vintage.
The boss is here. Look busy.
Right, what have you been up to?
I'm just waiting for all the backseat hosting to start happen.
Right,
I
well,
wouldn't press that button, Connor.
The first thing, Connor, is that. Get rid of that tangerine border a bit. You see a bit of a difference there. The OCD in me has just got rid of that. But anyway, as you were, it's your show. just pretend I wasn't here.
It really feels like I'll switch to the Stoke reaction overlay, and we are now truly in Stoke reaction mode.
It's the only reason why I've turned up, really. No, I'm a last minute sub for this show, so doing my bit for the team.
Yeah, we didn't have enough misery, so we thought we'd bring John in to come along.
So
don't forget, Sean, I do have power of the studio here.
So, John, we'll start with you, seeing as you've now kindly joined us. What's your general feeling from the Stoke game, and do you think they were good value for the win?
Well, I think there was that key metric that we discussed on the previous show was the XS factor. The XS is for expected shithousery. And Stoke are quite famed for that throughout the years, particularly under Tony Pulis. But I think that theme has continued with this current side, with this current team. And I came away from that game like I came away from the Huddersfield game, and like I came away from defeats last year against the likes of Gillingham and other teams of that ilk who play football not badly, but it's a variation of anti-football, but they do it well, and they always seem to do jobs on us, those sorts of teams. And I was kind of prepared for a defeat yesterday, if I'm honest. I wasn't confident, particularly when I saw the team sheet, which I'm sure you'll be showing in a minute. When the absence of the main man, and I thought we're doomed to failure against a team of bullies. And it proved to be the case.
Yeah. There was that fantastic stat of, I think it got 5 yellow cards in the first half, which is basically half a team. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before.
Fletcher was very, very lucky he stayed on the pitch as well.
Celebrating his goal like he scored an absolute worldie. Hit him and went in.
Disgusting.
So, Joe, I take it that means you have strong opinions on if it was a red card for Fletcher and his alleged kick out at Jordan Gabriel. Neil Critchley seems to think it should have been a red, and our slightly less beloved Dean Ashton at Quest all think it would have been red. Do you agree?
There's no alleged about it. It was GBH. If that's done on the street, he's having a night in the cells. He's kicked at the back of him, and I can't believe that he must have seen it because he's booked him. So he was nowhere near the ball. But to be fair, I thought first half we played really well and we should have been 2-0 up. Carey's unlucky with its effort. Their defender's got a decent block in. I love Jezza to pieces, but he should have done better with his effort. Second half, I thought they came out and their manager's done a good job on us. He's spotted that we like to play it out from the back. He's pressed us from the front. They've gone all the way up the pitch. They've stopped us from playing out, not giving us any time on the ball, and we struggled to create anything of any meaning in the second half. Overall, I thought a draw was a fair result. We were a bit lucky at Sheffield United. We were a little bit unlucky last night. It evens itself out. We're 10th in the Championship. We're 1 point off the playoffs. I'm not going to lose much sleep over yesterday's result.
Yeah. And going back to the goal Sean, I know you tweeted before the match that you expected set pieces to be the difference maker in this game, using many sophisticated stats that truly aspire to be just, of the same sophistication as is Jimmy Husband at left back. Can you tell us a bit more about their set piece threat, the goal, and do you think this might become an issue for Blackpool, given how many we seem to be shipping at set pieces?
Well, I think obviously, first of all, Stoke were, before last night, underperforming in terms of the amount of chances they've created from set pieces in terms of actually putting them away. So they'd clearly been putting the ball into the right area, but they weren't particularly finishing them off. But for me, I think I'll just go back a bit and then I'll kind of move on to this. I think that the thing that changed the game was Ostergaard coming on at half time. I thought he was absolutely superb when he came on second half. He won most of the ball. And Ben Wilmot, I thought, had an absolute stinker, to be honest. He was very fortunate not to have picked up another yellow. He looks so lackluster at the centre half, and we really struggle with the ball. They really struggle with the ball in behind. And I think, yeah. Well, exactly.
What was that again? Remind me.
Points per game when James Husband.
Yeah.
The ultimate metric. I was going to say, right, so that first half, I was really impressed with us personally. I thought we planned that pretty much bang on to how Stoke play. I think that we were happy to have. We had triggers for the press, much like we did against Fulham earlier in the season, rather than just simply pressing from the front. There was a trigger where that's when we would press, and we knew when they were going to turn the ball over. Stoke were more streetwise than Fulham by the drag backs, and ultimately all of the yellow cards that they picked up tended to be when we forced a high turnover up the pitch and had a chance. And obviously, as Joe referenced, we just didn't put away the chances that we had at the time, and I think we had to kind of go in 1-0 up if we wanted to win the game. I thought it was similar to Blackburn almost in that sense of against Blackburn, we came out in that similar fashion, but we got those 2 goals in the first half that you needed. And then we were able to have that sort of drop off in the second half and still concede that goal and still be okay because of the first half performance. But I think in the second half, obviously, James Husband had to slot across to centre half. When you lose Keogh, I think what really stood out for me really was the need for a defensive midfielder. When Keogh's not playing, I think that you looked at the way that Fletcher and Brown in particular were playing off each other, and Fletcher was able to come deep, collect the ball, and then sort of have time to turn in behind. And James Husband's quite rash at pressing, and I think Keogh's a lot more measured in the way that he presses now out from centre half. James Husband's second half performance was essentially what Keogh was doing at the start of the season and has coached out of his game. But James Husband isn't a centre half. He was pressing as if he was at fullback, but he wasn't. He was at centre half. And
do you not think it was a strange decision to bring Garber on and then shift Husband? And given we've got a ready-made specialist centre half, as you've said, Sean, on multiple occasions, he's not a right back. He's a centre half, and we've not actually seen him out that role, have we? I was scratching my head a bit when I saw
Personally, I think that regardless of whether it was Connolly or Husband, because I think if you have Connolly on, you have to shift at Pateta across to the left. I would potentially have brought Connolly on at centre defensive mid and sort of shored up the midfield, because I thought that the space and the openings that they had was because of, if we had a defensive mid, we'd tighten up those lines. Fletcher wouldn't have as much joy as bringing the ball down and having the time to play into Jacob Brown. And obviously, as I was saying before, I mean, it's similar to the Coventry game where Keogh would press quite rashly, much like Husband did, and then Pateta's then having to cover one-on-one at the back. And I think if you have a centre defensive mid in there, that kind of shores up that area of the pitch, and you're not as sort of boom and bust in that sense. You're not one man goes forward and then suddenly it's one-on-one behind. So I think it's something that the first target in January is definitely a defensive midfielder anyway. And these types of games, the Cardiff, Coventry, and this game, were games where you want a solid sort of destroyer in defensive midfield. And I think we missed that in this squad at the moment, because obviously we missed out on Alan Campbell, who's now at Luton. We were linked earlier in the season with Ben Ngami, who's now at Hearts, and he's doing the similar job. And I think if you don't have Keogh in, you have to have a defensive midfielder against teams like that. Whereas if Keogh is there, as you're saying, distribution as well, he can thread the balls into midfield. Whereas normally you'd have the defensive midfielder destroys, picks up the ball, then plays the ball through the lines into midfield. Keogh kind of misses that step out and does it himself through the thirds. So essentially, if we don't have Keogh on Saturday, I do wonder if perhaps we probably should have a flat midfield three rather than having an attacking midfielder.
I want to pick up on the point you made around Wilmot for Stoke, their number 16, and just how poor a game he had. And I think part of that was very much Blackpool's game plan. It seemed to me like one of the pressing triggers you mentioned, Sean, was Wilmot picking up the ball. We were just then immediately hone in, harass him, and he would inevitably give it away. Like, he just seemed to be so poor on the ball. And one of my favourite parts of the evening, I was sat with the prawn sandwich brigade in the west, right by the away dugout. He was playing quite close to us on their left-hand side in the first half. And we basically just realised he was their worst player. Looked so poor on the ball. And we just started cheering whenever he got the ball and whenever he inevitably gave it away. Until eventually he started to just get more and more nervous and give it away more and more. Until eventually, he was subbed at half-time and, eventually trudged back, kind of head down into the dugout to rapturous applause from this section of the West Stand. And I think it's the only time I can ever claim credit to harassing a player so much to get subbed off at half-time.
I was going to say with obviously the referee, and I thought personally, obviously we can talk about the Medine penalty shout and obviously the red card. I thought generally the ref had a really good game, and it was important that he stamped down on those Stoke fouls, cynical fouls, quite early on, because if he hadn't, then we would have been even worse off than we were in the game generally. And I was sat behind the radio Stoke commentators, and they were apoplectic about the referee, and the fans were going mental about the referee. And we were literally sat right there. I watched the grimace, the grit of the teeth of Stephen Fletcher when he just completely lashed out at Gabriel. And that was the most blatant sending off that I've seen in a long time. And I think it was an absolute disgrace that people are then go to have the cheek and the nerve to then complain about the referee when you've got away with a decision like that. That's a game-changing decision. And it was, if they'd have gone out in at half-time when that blatant red was there after the first half they'd have had, they would never have come out in the second half anywhere near the way that they did, as measured and as calm as they are, because their manager will have told them they got away with it in the first half. And they did. And ultimately, if Stephen Fletcher's not on the pitch, they don't score the winner, and we come away with either with a point or with 3 points, and we're happy. Even the dog's crying because of Stephen Fletcher. Bloody Stephen Fletcher.
It's funny you should say that about their commentary team, because for whatever reason I couldn't get ours on, so I had to listen to theirs. And at half time they were asking if there was anything they could do to change the game, and I hate to sound sexist, but it was the female commentator that said, "Yeah, get a better referee." And I was like, "You cheeky bitch."
I was going to say, because the thing is with that, because obviously they have the phone-in show afterwards, and the two pundits, I think they were ex-players, were saying similar throughout the game, and I just think, are we like that? I always think to myself, when you see like a clearly biased opinion on the other side, am I like this when my team is on the other side? Like, do I do this myself? I'm trying to understand. I was just like, it's such there were such blatant yellow cards. They're dragging back people who've just won possession and they're going to go on an attack. How can you possibly complain about a yellow card and have the cheek to continue about the referee after what Stephen Fletcher did there? It was right in front of his own fans, and it was still going at the referee for giving him a yellow card. I was just like, what? It was bizarre to me, but ultimately, at the end of the day, second half, our press dropped off a bit. And then obviously once the press dropped off, they got more control of the game. We needed an outball. Medine came on, did really well in that position as the outball. But I don't necessarily think, I know John was saying about the lineup. I thought the lineup was spot on, to be honest. And we thought we played really well in the first half. And we were absolutely fantastic off the ball in the first half. And it's easy to talk about that. Like, at the end of the day, look, Medine was there as the outball because we looked tired in the press. But if we'd have kept that intensity up for the 90 minutes, we would have got a positive result. And I just think that I just don't see what we would have got out of starting that way.
John,
remember that header in the first?
Remember
that header that was right at the end of the first half? It was just too high for Jerry. Couldn't get his head on it.
Yeah, but it's creating the chance initially.
Gary Medine had been on the end of that. It'd have been
creating the chance initially. is the point, and you don't create the chance initially if you've got Gary Medine on the pitch because of the way that we created the chance. It's not that type of game because he would have
Keep
held the
talking
ball
like this,
up
Sean, because
and
you know what
played it
always
back in.
happens. You know what's going to happen against QPR now.
That's fine though. It's a different game. I agree. I think we should play
And
Gary
you,
Medine.
Connor,
I think we should play Gary
You're
Medine
not
against
exempt
QPR. You
from
see.
this, Connor, as well.
I've been leading the Gary Medine, religious services recently. I'm full on converted. I've had my Medine experience.
I think we need to work a bit more on Sean, don't we?
It's horses for courses, isn't it? And I thought that in that game, the way we set up, I initially thought perhaps before the game, I was like, well, we probably should play Medine because it's going to be a physical game. But to be honest, the way we set up off the ball and the way that we kept winning turnovers and pressing really high and creating chances, I just think that we set up well. It's just one of those. It's just we went the other way this time. And like Joe was saying, I think we rode our luck a lot at Sheffield United. And realistically, if the results had flipped, we'd be like, well, fair game. We've won at home. We've lost away to a good side in Sheffield United. So it's just what it is, isn't it? At the end of the day,
and we're still only 1 point off the playoffs. Yeah. It's not like we're in a horrific situation.
No.
Say everything that we predicted, the three of us that predicted, well, two of us predicted a draw, and obviously Connor predicted a win. Say it is a draw. That leads us going into the international break on 25 points. That's halfway towards the pre-season target of 50 points after 17 games. You're taking that all day long before a ball's kicked in the season.
One thing I forgot to pick up on, was something I noticed, and I was kind of like, I think it kind of shows the missing of Chris Maxwell was the setting of the tone in the second half with our distribution. I think Dan Grimshaw can be quite passive and a bit slow at times. And it was getting quite frustrating where you could see the option was there for a quick counter-attack, and you see Maxwell is instant, straight out, ball straight out, straight away, and we're setting that tone again of intensity. As soon as we win the ball back, we're getting ourselves up the pitch out wide, we're creating the width, and I think that Grimshaw's a little bit hesitant in that regard. But his distribution generally was very good, but it was just, I thought he was a little bit hesitant compared to Maxwell. But obviously, Maxwell's a far better goalkeeper, so that's just generally how it's going to be, isn't it?
And it's not like we know that Grimshaw is incapable of it. It's probably just a mentality attitude. He got an assist against Sheffield last game doing precisely that. So we know he can do it.
Connor,
Sheffield United.
There you go.
To appease those in the chat. We haven't had many recent games against Wednesday. And then finally, speaking of trying to prevent disputes around fans, there was also some off-the-field theatrics. The game stopped at one point because missiles were coming onto the pitch. According to Matt Scrafton, the FA were already investigating disorderly fans at Bloomfield Road with potential for further fines, reduced capacity, etc. Is that a problem we as a fan base need to be talking about? Is it a healthy atmosphere? Or is it something we should just try and put behind us and move on as a fan base?
I think.
Go on, Sean. No, go, okay, Sean. Okay.
I was going to say with this because for me, look, weeks and weeks ago, and I'll keep putting the point home because I think it's important that we keep the pressure on them at the moment because of how inept they've been this season. The police had handheld cameras on the north stand all game again. They've got a CCTV system within the ground. They've got much more police than they've probably ever had at Bloomfield Road on a week-by-week basis. They weren't particularly controlling fans at the end of the game outside. I just think if they wanted to, if they could really have been asked, they would have picked out each and every individual that has done something in the North Stand from the very beginning. And I think that why should we as a fan base self-police ourselves when it's a very minute number of individuals, generally young people who don't particularly support the club, just kind of coming down to have a bit of a mess around. They're not the proper football fans that are coming down because those people are turning around and saying, what are you doing? To me, I think that the police should be doing much more on this. And if they wanted to, they have, and you're not telling me the amount of handheld camera battery, the amount of memory they must be using those bloody handheld cameras since they brought them out at the start of this season, that they haven't got pictures of that, exactly those moments time and time again, and they couldn't have done something about it. So for me, I put the blame on the police personally. And I think that as much as we can self-police ourselves, I think that what is the point in them having the resources there to go and film fans at matches, to
You know,
treat fans as if we're instantly criminals. Because I think the Blackpool Police Force at this point are criminalising Blackpool fans for being Blackpool fans this season. And I think it's an absolute disgrace. And the amount of... I'm going to go back to that police statement where they basically denied all responsibility of what happened outside at Preston. That is the mentality in the police force this season at Blackpool games. I think that they're inept in their job, in their processes. I think they've been inept in terms of organisation out of the ground, and now they're inept in the ground, because why do you pay the police bill for them to police fans? That's their responsibility at a Blackpool game, and they have not once picked any of these people out from the crowd. So tell me what they're doing about it before we have to take responsibility ourselves.
This whole issue of self-policing, like fans policing fans, that just doesn't sit well with me at all. It's not our role as fans to go up to, you don't know, you get some right head cases sometimes at matches. You know, what's to say? I've once, joking aside, because I sat in someone's seat in the North about 5 years ago. I was flanked, I had hands. One of them said, if you don't move, I'll slit your throat. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. And these are the types of individuals that are doing these things. And it's not up for other fans to go and challenge these people, because you don't know the reaction you're going to get. And they shouldn't be having to deal with this. Like Sean said, it should be the police. And, you know, to a lesser extent, maybe the club. If they've got CCTV, just get that in, get in action, get these people, just sling them out and let's get on with it. But yeah, I think, Joe, the police have got a lot to answer for here. Don't know what your
Definitely.
was.
I mean, I'll tell you a funny story from Middlesbrough. There was, like Sean saying earlier, there's like a fella with a camera, and I know this is the way, so I don't know if it's the same police that deal with our home games or not. But there was a fella, he was literally from before kickoff, one of them little handheld cameras, doing that, just filming them. And I spotted him, and you know me, I don't drink or anything. And just as a joke, I looked at him and I went like that. And he went, "Grow up or I'll throw you out."
This is the thing with them. For me, it's the handheld cameras we are doing something. We look like we're doing something here. And it's the standoff approach that they've had all season. But it's a standoff approach to the point where they will allow criminal activity to go on outside the game. There's criminal activity going on outside of the ground post-match because they are inadequate in their planning. They have no idea what they're doing. And I just think, but to me, I think you can't be that inept. For me, I just don't see how you can be that inept at your role where you can't plan simple things like that, or you can't go onto a camera or a CCTV footage after the game. There's high definition cameras all around the ground. How can you not possibly pick out these people that are doing these things and do something about it? And for me, it's because they want Blackpool supporters to have a bad reputation so they can then advocate for lower away followings, for stricter, to basically up their own bill.
I was going to say, charge
police
more.
Force. They can bring in a higher amount of police. Yeah. They can bring in higher amount of police. They would love it if the North Stand got a section shut down. That's great for them because they don't have to do anything, but they'll get the same money for it. And I just think that it's disgraceful what is happening, and there's no responsibility from the police force whatsoever this season. They just abdicate responsibility at all times. That statement that they put out was laughable, and it really infuriates me when people, it's like a one rule for one and one rule for the other. And it infuriates me that we have to sit there and take that. And there needs to be a time where Blackpool fans really come together, whether it's the supporters trust and supporters groups come together and say, this isn't on, because you've got a responsibility before someone gets seriously hurt.
Yeah. I think picking up on the point you said there about, fans need to come together, and John, your point around self-policing not sitting right. I think the most disheartening thing I found yesterday was not the result. It was the way Blackpool fans on Twitter and social media afterwards kind of turned on each other. There were lots of fans trying to self-police and say, look, if you're throwing stuff onto the pitch, etc., you're not a Blackpool fan, and some people getting quite defensive and being like, look, if you're sitting in the West with your prawn sandwiches and, your kind of warm cups of, coffee, you're not really a Blackpool fan. Real fans create atmosphere. And
real
this
fans,
weird
real fans throw things onto the pitch. That's essentially what
yeah,
they're saying.
it's
aren't
like
they?
this weird narrative where everyone's trying to decide who is a Blackpool fan and who isn't a Blackpool fan, and it's just nonsense. Like everyone enjoys football in their own way, you know. With few exceptions, no way of enjoying football is the right way. Some people like singing and chanting and jumping up and down. Some people like sitting it kind of, with a wry smile. Some people like Sean and I really enjoy understanding football through stats. And it's just
and then flinging myself 4 rows down at the Sheffield United away at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's no right way, and you can do all of them, or you can do just one of them. But I just found the infighting, today after the game, really, really disheartening. And I think
which I'm sure that the police will be loving as well.
That's what I mean. It's always
divide
when
and
you've
conquer, divide and
exactly,
conquer.
Exactly that, John. And it's always the case. As long as we're infighting with each other and not looking at the actual people who are responsible, we're paying their wages. The club are paying a hefty bill for the police force. That is their responsibility. They're there to police Blackpool games, and if they're not policing Blackpool games, they're the ones to blame for this continuation of this happening, not Blackpool fans having to go and self-police each other. What exactly are they expecting Blackpool fans to do? To turn around and just start throwing people out themselves? It's almost as if we are the police then. It's like, what is expected here? I find it bizarre to me that this
did anyone see the Insulate Britain protester today with one of his flags on top of a police van, left there for hours? Not one policeman came and removed him. And someone put it on Twitter saying, guaranteed, if this is a football fan with one of his club's flags doing exactly the same, he'll be pulled off that van faster than you can.
As someone said on that, you get
sent and arrested.
You get sent on wrong trains home at away games. I've been on plenty of away games where we've had a large following. They've just thrown you on a train and sent you back, and God knows where you're going. You'll end up at a different station. You're having to change your train. They treat you like cattle. Football fans are cattle to police, and then the minute that they actually have to have some genuine responsibility to organise to stop things happening outside the ground, they're happy to let it happen because they know the reputation of football fans precedes them, and they know that the general public will be like, well, it's football fans being football fans, isn't it? Rather than 99% of football fans are behaving themselves, there's 1% trying it on, and then that someone will get seriously hurt. And again, as we've said before, someone's going to get seriously hurt this season outside the ground, and it's going to be on the police, but it won't be on the police. They'll put out a statement condemning Blackpool fans throughout the campaign, and they'll say that it's all our fault from the very beginning.
Completely. And Dennis in the comments has made a really good point, and I do want to emphasise this. We're not just having a go at the police and being one-sided because we want to and because we don't care about balance. Dennis has asked in the comments what's happened around getting the SLO or police representatives on the show. And the answer is we've reached out to them. Members of the Seasiders pod team have reached out to the kind of Seasiders police account, got in touch, got a couple of responses, and then completely ghosted. So we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep trying to get representatives on the show, but similar to Sean says, that kind of level of accountability and willing to have a dialogue just probably isn't there at the moment. And we'll try our best to be reasonable people. We'll be very reasonable when they come on. But, until that happens, it's quite hard for the frustration to not just build and build and build. Because it is really disheartening when you see these events at games and afterwards.
I'm just going online now to order my NWA t-shirt.
Can you chuck a virtual lighter at them? Maybe they'll respond then. But no, in all seriousness, though, I think that point's very important. We're not condoning the actions of a few absolute dickhead fans, pardon my French. If you are doing any of that shit, if you are throwing stuff onto the pitch, one, you're endangering players, whether it be opposition players or our own. You're endangering fans at the front of the stand. And ultimately, you're going to end up getting the club in trouble, be it via fines, via having sections of the ground shut, or, the most extreme, if it does carry on, via points deductions. Because we know that the FA love to look proactive. The EFL love to look proactive when it comes to stuff like this. Forget about, money laundering, not paying bills, things that you can get in real trouble for. It's more, little fan disturbances and little handbags in football matches for teams that haven't played each other in a decade. Sorry, I slightly digressed there a little bit. But yeah, if you are at a game and you see somebody doing that, I don't think it's your responsibility. Because like John says, it could be any old nutter. You could tell him to pack it in. He could turn around and lamp you on or something worse.
That's the point that I would say. That's why it's so important that we get responsibility from the police and they take action, because, like you say, Joe, you don't know who you're talking to. I wouldn't randomly go up to some guy who's... It depends what this context is, but I wouldn't generally go out of my way to tell some guy to shut up or stop doing something who's about 3 times the size of me, which is 99% of the population, to be quite honest. But it's like you were saying before, look, it's, for me, the most important thing that I think will hit home with Blackpool fans, we can talk about fines and things, but obviously a lot of people kind of pay no attention to that because they just think, oh, well, the owner's got this infinite supply of cash, it's okay, or they'll plug it anyway. But I think it's that reputation of the North Stand. We've got the best home support for me in the country this season. It's something special is happening in that stand.
Yeah, even Stoke fans commented on it last night on the internet.
And it's like, why? For me, the people that started this whole movement in the North Stand will despise these people doing this. And that's what frustrates me the most, because they don't deserve that. And the fans that are going in, week out and singing their hearts out every week don't deserve it because a couple of twats are throwing things on the pitch. And it just frustrates me, but it frustrates me more. And I'll keep going on because it really frustrates me. And I was watching them. I kept looking over to them during the game, especially after that happened. And they just don't do anything. And they don't do anything generally around the country now. It's just a genuine theme that they've closed ranks, because how dare we, hold power accountable? And then suddenly they'll close ranks. And it's become a common, consistent theme throughout the country. And football fans are the last people
it runs from the top, though, Sean.
You'll never get an answer. You'll never get an answer.
Look at the Conservative government as well. Look what they're up to.
Well, that's the thing.
It all drips down.
Football fans are the last people that will get an answer because they're the least looked. We have the least respect from the police. Generally, in terms of like groups of people in that sense, in terms of sport, even if you look in a sporting sense, rugby fans don't get this. Cricket fans don't get this. Yep. It's football fans. Football fans are working class scum to the police force. That's all they are, and it's all they'll ever be.
My final thoughts on it are: police, do your job. Stewards, earn you £15 an hour.
All right.
Well, I don't even expect. Sorry, can I say I don't even expect stewards to do anything. They don't get paid enough.
Dickheads throwing things onto the pitch. You're playing into the police's hands by doing this, so you are helping the police corral us and vilify us by doing what you're doing. So stop it.
All right. I'm going to move us on now to a slightly more positive, but only just, part of the podcast. It's that part of the podcast where we lovingly curate, a Blackpool team that we think is going to win on Saturday. And
this would be so much easier, and then John turned up.
Yeah. And we send it out into the world for it to be lovingly, horrifically slaughtered by the wider Blackpool internet community.
Is Stanley allowed to help me?
Yeah.
Of course, Stanley is allowed to help you. He'll probably do a better job than John. All right, I've got my
debating that.
We're going off the basis that Keogh and Garbutt are out injured then.
Yes.
I would, yes. Okay. So I'll give Stanley choice of formation because he's our newest panel member. Stanley is Joe's dog, everyone, for those of you who can't see the stream.
I think he's saying paw too.
Okay, we will indeed play paw 2. Oh. We'll be here all week, mainly because Joe can't find another gig. Oh, all right. In goal, I'm assuming that Grimshaw is fairly nailed on. Yeah. All right.
I'm
Hopefully he won't put in a grim performance.
Wow. It's getting worse.
All right. And at left back, are we choosing to believe in the magic of points per game when Jimmy Husband is at left back?
Sure.
Yes.
We are. He's player of the month. I voted for him in October. I thought he's been immense, much improved, and he's starting to look like a wing back now, which is important as well. So yeah, definitely husband.
Okay. And then our left centre back, John.
It's got to be Marv.
Okay. Okay. Notice how I've used his full last name there because spelling is important. And I really hope I haven't spelt it wrong now. All right. And then our right centre back. I think there's only one name on the list, but Joe, who would your name be?
I'd have to go with Connolly at the minute because not really seen head nor hair of Gretson this season. So, yeah, got to be a Connolly for me, centre back.
Any dissent?
No, I agree. I think, I mean, obviously, if we had Keogh fit, it'd be a different story. And if we had, it is what it is. We've just got to play him there. And I think I really like Connolly. And I thought he was quite undervalued at right back, really.
Fair enough. I agree. I think Connolly, when that worst comes to worst, that means we can shift him to right back and play even more players out of position mid-game.
I just think one thing we forgot to talk about was how shit the defending was on the Stoke goal from the set piece. If anyone watches the cross coming in, there's like a line of 7 Blackpool players, 1 Stoke player unmarked, completely free and unmarked in the far post.
It's not the first time we've left somebody unmarked at the far post, though. Like I don't think we're coaching defensive set pieces
it's
that
strange to me because I think if you think about how Critchley is so sort of thinking of every fine-tuned detail, and obviously the amount of set piece coaches around and that improved importance on set pieces at the moment in time, I'm really surprised that isn't something he's honing in on. And you've got to think that I'm surprised. Really, that we don't seem to have a zonal or man marking system. It kind of just seems to be bodies in the box. Yeah, it's really bizarre to me, though.
Yeah,
for someone that's so meticulous, I would find it strange that he isn't coaching it. So I just instinctively feel like the players just aren't acting out what he's telling them to do because I just have this full faith that he's doing something about it.
Yeah. So there's no marking, just vibes. And the players are probably...
We wouldn't actually know attacking-wise if our set pieces were any good in the second half because Luke Garbett was firing into outer space every 5 minutes.
All right. And then we did have a comment, which I think is...
Gabriel.
Yeah. Well, I think we had a great comment from MB who said we should put husband at centre-back and give Reece James a go at left-back.
Okay.
Which is a bold strategy.
He is a specialist left back, though, isn't he? He's a specialist.
Yes, but husband isn't good at centre half. That's important to me there.
Yeah.
All right. So Sterling or Gabriel, other than failing to get Fletcher sent off, I think Gabriel had a pretty good game.
He was our best player, I thought.
Yeah, he did.
I thought he was man of the match.
So does he keep his spot?
It's annoying. It's annoying because Sterling's such a good player.
Where is he though? Was he he went on the bench? Was he?
No,
he wasn't.
If only somebody had brought the team sheet up earlier.
Well, yeah. Well, didn't want to say anything.
Team sheet, guys. Always prepared.
No, he wasn't. You're right.
Isn't he still recovering from illness?
Yeah, it seems like it must be a longer thing than initially anticipated. But I think Gabriel would have started anyway, regardless. Yeah. But like I said in a podcast last week, it's inevitable that Sterling will eventually come into the side and keep his place because he's that good. But at the moment, Gabriel's probably our best player over the piece in the past couple of games. So.
Absolutely, Josh. I do remember that Bristol City game. I even forgot he was playing. I didn't even know he was playing until half time. He was that anonymous.
Right. Central midfield. I assume that's fairly open and shut in terms of it's Wintle and Dougal.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Dougal had a lot of misplaced passes. I don't know if anyone noticed.
I thought that was down to... The thing with me is Dougal tends to have misplaced passes when he's not got an out ball. Think of the last bad game he had was Huddersfield at home, and that was again where we were overrunning midfield, and he didn't have an out ball generally, and I think that's where you kind of see Dougal suffer a bit, because he's always looking for that more riskier pass. And I think that that kind of is where he fell apart. But that's the issue for me, and the problem for me in the QPR game is they... in midfield have some of the best technicians in the league for me. So I'm quite wary of that again happening, but it's kind of just needs must at this point.
But if Dougal's playing a lot of misplaced passes, we've got to show there's competition in the squad. Do we go back to kind of an early in the season throwback and play Reece James at central midfield?
It's just like playing with 10 men. So no.
No, all right, we'll put Dougal in now. I'll stop trying to be clever. All right.
Let's talk about Josh Bowler and there's something wasn't mentioned that I wanted mentioning, Colin, on the reaction bit was the delay in bringing in Josh Bowler, and he was brought on too late.
We had lost a sub because we had to sub off Richard Keogh early in the first half, which I thought might be why, we then delayed a lot of our subs later because we had to kind of get back into the timing of it.
I personally would have brought on Owen Dale rather than Josh Bowler personally, and I would have shifted Keshi across to the 10 because I thought Carey was probably not in the game as much as most in that team. And I think that Josh Bowler kind of summed it up. He looked lively when he came on, but there was that point in particular where he took the ball past 3 men and then just ballooned his shot about 40 yards wide, but it deflected off a Stoke player for a corner. He looks lively, but I think I would always... At the moment, I think I would prefer to bring Dale on as an impact, quickly followed by Bowler. I just would bring them both on personally, but I'd bring Dale on over Bowler at the moment.
And who would you start for this game, Sean, on the right?
Great. Yeah, that's great. Bowler. And then I'm not going to play Dale on the left either. So that's great.
Is there an argument to see Keshi playing in this number 10 and changing this formation?
I would change the formation to 4-2-3-1 personally.
He's not played the 10, has he?
I think
4-4-2. Really,
QPR have got a back three. I would say Johansson, Andre Dezelle, and Ilias Chair are a frightening midfield when they're on form, and I think that we need to match them in midfield personally. So I would play 4-2-3-1.
You play 4-2-3-1.
I agree with Sean.
All right, so we might change the formation. We're going to cruelly override the wishes of our latest panelists, Stanley the dog, and change to a 4-2-3-1 from a 4-4-2. Okay. We're getting to the point where we're betraying dogs now. This is what this podcast has sunk to. There we go.
Let's have Keshi in the number 10 role.
Keshi in the number 10 role.
Yeah, and let's get Owen Dale on that left flank.
Owen Dale on the left. Dale will finally get a chance to kick a ball in a game that isn't against Reading.
Look at that 3 there. That's got everything.
This next one from me will surprise you. I think Medine should start. Because I think...
Who are you and what have you done with Sean?
I think that if you're looking at QPR in terms of... I think the best way to combat that, they've got another physical, probably back 3, and Rob Dickey in particular is great at winning balls aerially. And I think that if you've got someone in there... Because I think you've got runners in behind there. If we weren't playing Dale and Bowler as these direct wingers that can run in behind... Then I'm all for that. Do you not scrap it? Get him.
Put MB in timeout. Put MB in timeout for that. I'm sure he's all joking though.
But I just think we're better off. We're better off with Medine, I think personally, because he would play off Anderson. If you think of it in a game situation, quite a direct ball bypassing the midfield, which is important. We need to bypass their midfield because they're good technicians on the ball. Play it into Medine. Medine holds it up, plays it to Anderson. Then you've got Dale and Bowler as runners in behind. Yeah. You 3-on-3 with their centre halves. I think that's important to keep the pressure on. So I would probably start with Medina, and then obviously second half against a wearier legs centre half, then you bring Yates on and he can start running in behind directly himself. So it works out quite well in this game. And like I said, this is the thing, horses for courses. When we play against, I think the majority of teams in this league, Medine isn't the answer. But against a back 3, I think when you're playing quite a physical side, much like Stoke, I think that it's important to have someone up there if we're going to have to bypass the midfield rather than having a central defensive midfielder instead.
The Tangerine Inquisition has clearly got to you, Sean.
I know.
Do you not think Jerry Yates is starting to get a bit snatchy again at some of these chances?
No. I think that it's with that chance in the first half.
He brought it down beautifully.
I don't think we should expect him to score there, personally. I think that if he scores, it's great, but I don't think it was a sitter by any means. I thought the defender marshalled him very well, and it was a tight angle. And I think, as you say, John, the touch to create the space initially, and his movement was superb in the first half. I thought he had a really good game, personally. in terms of the first half, obviously, and then he kind of tired with the rest of the team in the second.
To give context, I think the XG on that chance was about only 0.2, which means
Yeah.
your average striker would only score it 20% of the time. So it's unfair to expect him to score that or to call it a sitter.
And that's the thing, we've been overperforming our XG in the past 2 matches. I'm going to go XG now because Connor's brought it in. We've 0.71 XG in both Sheffield United
See you in a minute.
and then the Stoke game. So 0.71 XG, and we've scored once in the 2 games is about right. If you're creating chances at that level consistently, then we'll be in trouble. But we're 17th in the XG table in terms of our created chances, but we've got players now of a better caliber that are taking chances that are less likely than generally we did last season. But ultimately, you're going to have these spells if you're not creating as many chances as you need to, and we're going to end up losing games. But I think we will create chances against QPR if we play this team.
Even Mitch agrees with the XG on this one, So in the same way that Gary Medine has won the battle for hearts and souls, I believe that XG is on its way as well.
You've not put Medine in the team yet.
I'm doing it.
Quick,
him, I am very slow to get there, okay?
Just checking.
Change your mind, Starkitch.
Yeah.
Or TJJ.
Do you know what?
Only
TJJ
joking.
pressing off the ball, mate. I will keep that Fulham performance to the grave.
Yeah. TJJ is a quality player, and I'm sure he'll prove us all wrong before he goes back, probably in January.
Yes.
It has recalled for not enough playing time all over it.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
No. So that is our team to go against QPR on Saturday. We'll, as always, put out onto the internet and Twitter for it to be mercilessly mocked. And
you watch the one time we actually picked Medine, by the way, we'll get grief for picking Medine, which will be superb.
You know the internet so well, Sean.
Yeah.
As ever, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit all those buttons. That means our content, our wonderful Blackpool content, gets into your brain and your eyes and your ears so much faster. Like, subscribe, all the ones on the bottom there in the banner, and we will see you after the QPR game when John will take us through the match reaction show.
You certainly will.
All right. And now I just need to figure out what I need to do to get us out card. There.